Thanks, Dragos. Thanks. It's a long biography, which means that I'm not young anymore, really. But if you don't mind, I would rather move around and talk like this. And I'm very grateful to be here. It's always nice to be in Bucharest. It's a bit strange because it looks so much like Belgrade, but it's completely different. And in a way, it's like moving into a familiar but so alien dream, where like the scenography is something that's embodied, it's in your mind, but the places you don't recognize. So Bucharest is definitely one of the moments on the planet that I always feel much stronger than other places. I wrote this article because Dragos made me do it, and I'm very grateful for that. It is quite difficult to really go through it all here in such a, so to say, short amount of time. So I will give you some context about it, how it came to life, and what is the content of it, what's the most important about this article. First of all, Mnemosonic Topographies is something that I came up with after many years of doing very different things, being involved in different disciplines. I completely agree with Salome that we should abolish the education, music education, after finishing 30 years of it, and to the hardest academies, classical music academies. So I agree we should abolish that part of music education or sensitize it to the point that it starts all over again. So after I finished my second music academy, I realized that being just someone who is interpreting music, it's not enough for me to continue living as an artist, and artist in a way that I was really brought up to be from very early age. So I started playing violin at the age of 6, and already at the age of 8 I went to big competitions, and I was really put into this situation that my whole childhood and youth was professionalized by classical music. So when I finished all it at the age of 22, 23, I really wanted to go into contemporary art production and kind of open up a different creative outlets for myself and also some people around me that I work with closely. So I opened Oropolis that Dragos mentioned. And the very beginning, I met a person who affected the rest of my journey, Sonia Lebosch, a cultural worker, culturologist, anthropologist, and Hispanologist. And we became friends. She was already working on something called Mnemosine, the Theatre of Memories. And she really opened up for me the moment of realizing how and why the culture of memory is important, and how can I find ways as an artist to refer myself to vast amount of memory that was surrounding us. And as you know, I'm Serbo-Croatian. I'm born as Yugoslavian. That country does not exist anymore. So the memory that is connected, that is embodied in my life is really particular. It's extreme, and it has many different outlets, so to say. Luckily, I'm an artist and I can channel it all. But something that Salome was talking about building the anti-fascist, not community, but collective, is something that we are, for example, where I come from, already a third generation of. It's a very embodied thing, anti-fascism and the ways of dealing with the surrounding, which is quite harsh, which involves a lot of dictatorships and different things. I think only in my short life, I lived through 3 different dictatorships. My voice is broken because I was shouting at Serbian government yesterday. So, and for 34 years straight. So it is something that is lived, and it is something that is possible. So Sonja was the person that really brought me to this research of mnemotopia, which is something that we can refer to as the memory of the place, and mnemopolitics, which is something that we can refer as the history and memory of politics embedded into a place. And then something called mnemopoetry is the poetics of the place, and all the things that the place itself can bring out. So I was researching with her a lot and doing certain projects in these 3 areas. We would do projects with archives, with national archives, with media archives. And after 10 years of really doing this in different medias, intermedia, multimedia, theater, written texts, and all, I started feeling that all my knowledge of sound is kind of starting to grow out of this compound. So it came mnemosonics as a 4th pillar of this research into the memory of the place, the politics of the place, the poetics of the place, and something that kind of wrapped all these 3 into mnemosonics of the place. And then it came topographies. Topographies because I live on the island of Korčula permanently for the last 5 years. But I grew up there and spent a lot of time there. And that is the place that formed my perception of sound in a way equally strongly as, so to say, classical music. Because Korčula is this place in the South Adriatic, really rich with history. Like every inch is thousands and thousands of years old and has all sorts of stories in it. And one very particular thing about Korčula is that it used to be one of the biggest sources of cutting stones, cutting limestone, as we locally call polymarble, very rich with crystalline, which makes it both soft and firm enough for building monuments, for building big blocks, for squares, so churches, houses. The thing is, this stone in Europe, for the last thousands of years, this place actually is the place from which stone was embedded into places like White House, like Hagia Sophia, the biggest ancient towns on the coast, like Split, Dubrovnik, Venetia, Rijeka, a lot of places in Paris. So this little small island that my mom happened to be from has this material that's embedded across world and mostly Europe into a lot of public spaces, a lot of religious, how is it called, temples, and the places that kind of build the culture, so to say, or this historical way of being communities getting together through trade. It's the material that used to be called white gold at the time, which was very valuable. And it was connecting many places together. So when I started really realizing what topography means, I realized that where I live and all this landscape that I'm very familiar with is just the shadow of what it was originally. So if you can imagine that this is the place where everywhere you look, you have a quarry, on this coast. And this stone was been taken out from it thousands of years. There are traces that there are Neolithic hammers found in some quarries. There are traces of Greek exploitation. There are traces of Roman exploitation. And then in the medieval ages, it was really famous in Europe as one of the biggest places for stone trade. So the landscape, it's completely changed. And it's changed for hundreds, thousands of years. And when I started recording it, like continuously, I was forced to start to imagine these landscapes, the transformation of this landscape. And that process really helped me to get into something called the memory of the place, if you wish, and something that really formed this text, because I was also quite lucky to have skills to really investigate the memory of the place. And now, what are these skills? When I was a teenager, I bumped into a bunch of people in Belgrade who were doing systemic constellations. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It is family therapy. Anyone familiar? No? It's becoming quite popular. It's widespread around the world. It was formed by this German psychotherapist called Bert Hellinger in the 20th century, who was, I think he was Protestant priest sent on a mission to Africa as a missionary. Spent a lot of time with the Zulu tribes and came back, went out of the church and started doing Gestalt therapy. Finished Gestalt therapy, and then formed this compound called systemic constellation, a family therapy, which was really contemporary Western Gestalt therapy upgraded with Zulu ancestral knowledge. And he produced something which works incredibly, which nowadays already developed so much. It's licensed therapy. Widespread, as I say, and after a thorough education, you can become therapist of it. So it's not voodoo; it's part of the system. Something that really brought indigenous phenomenology into Western therapeutical culture. And this is something that I simply started doing out of, where I lived. It was quite demanding to, in a way, learn, some sort of therapeutical approach. Otherwise, you go completely crazy, So, doing it for many, many years, not directly connected with sound, but rather with some other interests to help the community, to help my own family and myself in a way. I realized that I developed certain skills that started really to become quite, I'm not sure how to describe it, useful in a sense. But at the bottom of it, it's really a basic work with energy. And it is something when I started doing sound work, sound art, and I abolished all my music education, I found it quite powerful tool in a way. Because as we know, sound and energy are very, it's the same thing, basically. And they are very understanding of relations between sound and energy. It's very important in working with sound. So, if you don't mind, we can later do some exercises. Maybe you can also see practically what I mean. The biggest thing for me was, and I think it was kind of important and what spoke to people, for me as a sound artist, to come out with all these things. It's like walking out of a closet, like, what is it? Is she a witch, or is she doing, what's she doing? Energy is a very basic thing that we handle every day. And luckily, I'm not academic in any way. I don't have to, answer to anyone. So for me, it wasn't a problem to really be very open about this practice. And I think nowadays, with all the theoretical science and with the quantum theories and everything, the articulation of what energy is and how it is part of our lives, it's not anymore, it shouldn't be a taboo in any sense. So this, I don't know if you know this place or anyone recognizing it. This is Popina. It is a memorial of the Second World War in Serbia. The architect of it is Bogdan Bogdanović. He was one of the most famous Yugoslav architects who did, luckily, a lot of partisan and anti-fascist memorials of the Second World War. This one is called Sniper. Popina is the hill close to Čačak in Serbia, and on that hill there was a big battle in 1942 when 5 times bigger German army attacked partisans, a really small brigade of partisans, and a group of other army, like King's Army, that was trying to help them to push back the Germans. And that was the last time where these two, King's Army and partisans, were actually working together. After this battle, everything fell apart. So it was a huge battle, and they managed to push the 5 times bigger army, and some soldiers died, of course. But what happened in the next days is the Germans went to the nearby towns and killed thousands and thousands of civilians as a repercussion of this resistance. That's the reason why this memorial was built, for the soldiers and the thousands of civilians that died. So I went there to do some performance, and I do often go to places, not just memorial sites, but to places that have strong history, let's say, or they have a specific memory attached to them. And, if you have any experience with how energy works, then it's obvious that these places hold certain encodings. How all this work, I'm afraid we don't really have enough time to go into huge depth. But what I will try to explain to you is what's happening, when you're entering a place like that. And it's not a voodoo of any kind. It is more a process of falling into what Salome called the other huddle, right? Falling into the environment, to acknowledge that you are embedded in a space, that we are not just, moving through space, but I'm embedded in it, to really understand that borders of our body are not what we see, that our body is way more complex, and it works way more of our physicality, further than our physicality. And to understand that sound and space are deeply interlocked in vibratory events, in the politics of vibration, in vibration as a phenomenon. And once you start understanding how vibration works and how can you work with it and not against it, or you want to work against it, it's also, it's a choice. You start understanding all these compounds around the landscape, the soundscape, and how can they be translated through this vibratory work. I would like to just show you a few simple things that, I don't know if anyone does any yoga in here. Yeah? So you're familiar with like the middle pillar of your body, or so to say the energy of the body. Is there any volunteers who are gonna join me on stage? Come on. You don't need to do anything. You just need to be. No, it's fine. Okay, basic things, just to get rid of these notions that we are just what we see of our bodies. So, you can probably found in any kind of a new age thing, what's the energy body, the shape of how the energy body works. It's usually the form of the torus. So there is like flow that goes on one side and another one that works on the other side. And it forms sort of a bubble around the body. And then you have all these centers everywhere in the body. But we have a couple of main ones that work like motors. And as many of you heard about it, they call it chakras. But you can call it anything. So you can hold this. You want to try it on me first? Okay. So you can place it here. Just try to find where is my heart chakra. Am I dead? No. Okay, we found Maria's heart chakra. I brought a quite heavy thing, so you need a lot of energy to move this. So this would be a solar plexus. No, yes, you are moving it. I mean, your energy is moving it. And now don't get surprised This one is always the strongest.
Am I doing this?
So everyone has, you know, there is also one here.
I think this is like this.
Maybe it's a bit up. Don't look at it. My point is, we have a field around us, and that field is something that can be practiced and developed like you practice your muscles. And with people who work with energy, this field can be quite strong and very effective, and it can be quite wide. So the bubble around your body can be, you know, many meters around. So the potentials of the work with energy, it's really wide, so to say, big. It's something that we take for granted. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we wake up in the morning and we're like, oh, I don't have enough energy. But there is always a lot of energy. And with this compound, with all these wheels that we carry around, when we enter the environment, of course, we bring them with us. And in a way, we are transforming the environment, and the environment is reacting to our bodies. And it is always, this moment of collision, it's always transformative from both environment and our bodies. And I say bodies meaning also mind, meaning everything that body contains, not just the physical body. So, yes, thank you, Maria. This work, the sensory epistemology between sound spaces and memory, it's really about this transformative point and moment between the space, the landscape, the environment, and us as someone that comes into environment with intention. I don't know how much time do you have. What do you think? Okay, the intention is something that's very important in sound work, because if we consider the sound being energetically potent, being the form, being what you mentioned before, the invisible architecture, intention, it's something that is forming the energy. If you are familiar with semiotics, it's the ways how we can see sound. How we can see sound in water, for example, or in a different, there is something called semiotic plate that can show the sound. The water is a great way to see the sound, actually to see the energy. And for me, I put equal onto the sound and energy. I don't divide them anymore. Hydraulics is a really good way to see how sound operates energetically. The point with intention is that when you have intention, meaningful intention, it is really imprints itself energetically into the subject, whether it's a landscape or a person or audience or anything. So it is impossible not to receive this encoding. All the sound around us is a form of energy, and it cannot be destroyed. For me, as a sound practitioner walking into the landscape, the most important thing is to let the soundscape through me, to try to live with it and embody it in a way that it doesn't stays completely with me. In a way, trying not to transform it completely, but still have the experience, rich experience of listening. The point in this practice is that everything around us that's connected to sound, it's really embedded into our cells. Even now, me talking, any sound that you hear, and many sounds that we don't hear, because our hearing range is actually, in a natural world, quite limited, and we are a pretty deaf species comparing to what we have in this world. There is way more sound. There is no place like silence, really, in this world. So all of this, it gets embedded into our cellular memory as well. It stays with us. It's changing us permanently. And what I do, it's work around that. And that work has to be quite ethical in a way, because if you make music with awareness of all this that we talked about, then you really have to, do your math and make the sounds that you're putting out as ethical as possible, and in a way, open as possible for people to consume them, because that is what happens. I will not talk too much anymore, because if you want, we can do a little exercise. Would you like to do a little exercise? Or a game? Exercise or a game? Both? Okay. Shall we do a game on intention? Okay. I will imagine in my mind a color. You have two choices, green or yellow. I will stand still and project the color in my mind that I'm imagining. You can look at me, maybe watch a bit over me, and try to figure out which color I imagined. Why? Because you're quite fast. Maybe we are from the same tribe. Okay, well, you're a good crowd. Let's do blue and purple now. Is that enough time? How many of you are for blue? How many purple? So it's working. My point is that we have way more skills and abilities, and that they are quite at our hands than we are even thinking of or using them. this is something that is quite natural. It's a part of our body, extended body, and extended body mind that I'm mentioning in this paper. So I think I will leave you with these thoughts now, and would like to answer questions if you have. Oh, listening exercise. Okay, are you ready? Okay, can I sit down? This is something that often sound walkers do, so maybe some of you encountered it before. You don't have to, you will have to find a comfortable position. Sit back and close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. Take a moment to listen to the sounds in this room. It's okay to take a deep breath if you need it. Try to feel your body briefly. If there is any tension, just focus on that part of your body. You can also put your hand on that part to reduce the tension. Now try to hear the sounds in the whole. Move your mind to the whole, slowly rest of the building. Are there any sounds below you or above you? You can slowly move out in the street. What do you hear in the street? Go further away. What do you hear in this block of buildings? How does the whole city sound? Now choose to go out of the city further away, perhaps to the coast. Go all the way to the coast. What are the sounds at the coast? Now take a deep breath again and slowly start the journey back the same way. You are moving through the land towards the city. Back in this street, are the sounds the same or different? Enter the building. Enter the hall. Slowly move back into this room and listen to the sounds of this room. Take a deep breath and open your eyes when you're ready. How do you feel? Did you go places? Anyone? You feel tired in your body or your mind? What kind of tired? Because you were releasing the tension. Are you used to listening or sitting still or? All right. Anyone else? How'd you feel, Simon?
Thank you. It was a very, very good guided meditation, actually, this one. I kind of encountered multiple ones, but this one was particularly, your voice was very soothing, so I could concentrate quite good. And it was interesting, the sounds that I could hear in the building, and then going outside and hearing all the traffic noise and all the people, and like bits and pieces, like cracks of, I know, maybe memorable sounds from my own memory that kind of interconnected with all this kind of energetic field, and then going to the margins and then coming back, it was kind of like this reverse kind of pulling off of sound, which was quite interesting. The whole quite colorful, I would say.
Thanks. Anyone else feels like sharing the journey? Well, basically, this is a simple listening practice that it's really opening perception for listening inward and stretching the mind focus beyond, to say, a normal situation. And one of the points is also to triggering the recall and to bind together working memory and active memory. But it is also a great practice to release the tension and the heaviness you felt. It is a form of a discharge, in a way. If you're doing it at home, you can make your own journey and your own story. You don't have to go all the way to the coast. But I just felt inspired, and I was curious, how will the coast sound, you know? So I thought it's a good direction to go, but you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere around the planet, really. And if you practice, you know, you can communicate with this sort of work with people in different places, you know. So it's really not that far away from our reach, what someone called mentalistic abilities. It just sounds very pompous, but it's really a trait of our brain, you know. So if you think of a friend, and that same day he's calling from long distance, it means that you made a connection and that there is a certain synchronicity at work. But for me, it's most important thing is that I'm not really keen on phrases like there is nothing happens by chance and things like that. I think a lot of things happen by chance because we cannot grasp everything around us, especially not energetically. But synchronicity is a good way of being in a world. And we can practice that when we walk into a landscape and synchronize with it to really know and to find out what happened to it, especially if the landscape suffered a huge trauma, like the landscape where I live did. It is one of the most popular touristic places in Europe, where people pay huge amount of money to go there on holidays, completely unaware that this landscape suffered enormous amount of trauma through centuries. And this trauma is still embedded in the landscape. And there are ways to tackle, to feel this trauma with a bit of holistic work that I showed you here is just a glimpse of it. So I hope you understood. Thanks.